and welcome to Pragmatic Solutions with John Wyche. This show is going to be about the uplifting of the Black community. This show is going to be about empowering us with information. This show is going to be about making sure that we highlight achievers and we highlight information that's going to be pertinent to the Black community. And one of the things that my father always said is that he said that if you, son, in America, put your boat in the water, the boat always rises in America, always. And that's why it's important that we highlight the importance of folks before us, folks present, and folks that are in the future. And we're going to be talking about the young folk. We're going to be talking about folks my age and anybody in between, and even older folks. I've even got a story that I'm going to tell you, and I'm probably going to bring her on, about an 85-year-old who's flipping houses. She's always wanted to flip houses. And I've been helping her for a number of years now, and she finally got her first house flip by the graces of a brilliant young lady named Erica Cook. So I'm telling you, there are some outstanding stories, and that's what we're going to use this platform on Lit TV. That's Lit, L-I-T, TV Network.com. So everybody that's listening to me, you need to download that on the app. If you got a Roku device, it's right there on the apps. Lit TV Network.com. Lit TV Network. Again, this is the John Wyche show, and the name of the show is Pragmatic Solutions with John Wyche. And what does pragmatic mean? Pragmatic simply means let's make sure that you got your opinion, I've got my opinion, but let's meet somewhere close to the middle so we can get something done. And that's one of the things that this show is going to be about. It's going to be about receipts. It's not going to be about people talking. And as one of my good comrades talked about, it's not going to be about frying chicken in your mouth. It's going to be about making sure that what you say, I can look behind you, I look in front of you, and I look at your present situation and say, you got receipts. And one of my adages is I'll listen to you, I'll see your mouth moving, but I'll look behind you and I'll see if you got receipts. And if you got receipts, I'll keep listening to your mouth move. But if you don't have receipts, I'm tuning you out. And that's what this show, again, is going to be about. It's going to be about the uplifting of our community. And it's going to be about informing our community, giving our community real information to make real decisions. Now, what's on my mind right now? What's on my mind right now is we've got these politicians of all stripes, of all parties, they're coming in our community and they're not spending any money with Black-owned media outlets. They're not spending any money with Black professionals. And if they are spending money, it's a minimal amount of dollars that they're spending. What I want all of these folks that are fans of these politicians that are running right now, I want everyone that's listening to me to ask every one of the politicians, how much money are you spending with Black-owned media outlets? I'm talking about social media professionals. I'm talking about political professionals. I'm talking about TV. I'm talking about radio. I'm talking about print. Ask them that question. What is your budget? Not for the last 2 weeks of the campaign, because historically what politicians do with our community is they need us, as you can just look at what happened in Georgia. Without the Black community, there wouldn't be two senators, Democratic senators in Georgia. So they need us, but what they do is they come to the Black community at the last minute, and they tell the professionals, they tell the leaders in the Black community, I only got $200, I only got $1,000, I only got $500. Well, when you look at the money they took in, they've raised millions of dollars. And then they come to us, the people that they need, and they want to give us a tip and demand that we support them. That day is gone. I want everyone, please, that's listening to me, to ask every one of your favorite politicians, what's your budget now? Not 2 weeks before the campaign ends. What's your budget now for Black-owned media? Not Black-oriented media, Black-owned media. And the last thing before I bring my guest on for today's show is this. We're going to be talking about on this show ad nauseum turning dollars over in the black community. Now, what do I mean by turning dollars over? I mean from my black hand to your black hand. That's what they call turning dollars over in a community. I get some money, I give you some money. That's where the power is, folks. I get money, I give you that dollar. That's turning dollars over. In our community right now, and I keep saying this because it's important. In our community right now, if a dollar comes into the black community and it doesn't, and it does from my black hand to your black hand, one turnover, it's already linked somewhere. What do I mean by that? Our dollars don't turn over in our community. Our dollars stay in our community, less than 10 hours before we've already given it outside of our community. We need to stop that. We need to be intentional about making sure that we go from my black hand to your black hand. That's turning a dollar over. With that, that's what the pragmatic solutions with John Wyche is going to be about. It's going to be about simple things. You got to be intentional about where you spend your money. I was intentional when my mother passed to find me a black probate attorney. And I found the best black probate attorney. Really, I found the best probate attorney, period, in my first guest on my show. Attorney Coleman, welcome to Pragmatic Solutions with John Wyche. You are the best, man. I mean, the caring that you gave my family, the insight that you gave us, the professionalism that you displayed to us throughout the process, and you continue to display. The fact that we had property in Alabama and you went out and intentionally found someone in Alabama that you trusted to help our family with some property in Alabama. I just want to say thank you just for being the professional and the perfectionist you are, and you just blessed my family. And I just want to say thank you publicly on Lit TV with Pragmatic Solutions with John Wyche.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure to work with you and your beautiful family.
Tell me a little bit about your background, and when you talk about your background, talk about the impact you had on all families in Florida, every family, black, white, brown, whatever, in Florida, because of some of the leadership things you've done in your practice.
Well, I could talk to you a little bit about me. I don't know how much I can say about the impact that I've had on families. It's been, I'll start with saying that the reason I became a lawyer, got into this profession is because I wanted to help people that looked like me. I wanted to help people that stories that I could identify with, people that normally didn't have access to an attorney that they could trust. Historically, Black and Brown families have been taken advantage of by the legal system in a number of ways, right? Um, first with illiteracy, well, first with not even being able to have property, then illiteracy. And then also, there was a time, and maybe still going on, where professionals, be it medical or legal, would ask people to sign over their property to them while they were in their hospital beds or in exchange for service. I had a young lady who recently passed a couple of years ago. Her family lost property. Her and her husband lost property because a doctor came to her husband's hospital bed and said, "Hey, I'll do whatever you need me to do. Sign over this deed, sign over this property." And it turns out it was the deed to his family property that he had for years, generations. Um, Luckily, that got set aside, but that's just the exception to the rule. And then you also have the government that also has had a hand in disenfranchising uh, Black and Brown people from having property or property rights. And I say that with respect to um, the federal programs that were in place during the 30s through the 60s that incentivized developers to create suburbs and only have white people living in those suburbs, right? Because there was restrictive covenants that said if you were Negro blood or colored blood, you could not buy a property in those areas. And so they got federal dollars to build that. That's one way. But then also other laws like our partition laws. And so, really, what I'm talking about is air property. And so, air property, I'm from the South. Air property is property that's owned in a deceased person's name, is still titled in the name of a dead person. And there are multiple family members that have an interest on the property and live on the property. And so it's tied up because you've got probably 100 different people with an interest in the property, but the owner is a deceased person. And so that was causing issues in that you would have an investor not related to any of the family members, never paid taxes or anything, never lived on the property, would come in and buy someone's interest, a fractional interest of the property. And then, by virtue of them buying a fractional interest, would put the property up for sale and be able to divest everyone of their property interest, not just the person that they bought that interest from. And so that was a big problem. That was a way that more and more of our community, that was a way that our community was losing funds. And so a couple years ago, along with other members of the real property probate trust litigation section of the Florida Bar, and with the help of a very intelligent professor out in Texas, Thomas Mitchell, we advocated for the Heirs Property Act. And that kinds of stops those investors from coming in and essentially taking the property away from families, especially property that's been in families for generations. So those are some of my contributions. I'm hoping that those have made an impact on our community. I feel like they will in perpetuity. But yeah.
The other thing that I really want to talk about, and I want you to drill down on, is the fact that your passion for serving the community goes back from the initial "I want to be an attorney" to now. Can you talk a little bit about how many people? Or I'll tell you what. A better question is: can you talk a little bit about the importance of organization in probate? And then the follow on is that can you talk about the importance of a will? I mean, a simple will, even and because people just need to understand that a simple will can save you money, and it could avoid people looking into your deceased parents or loved ones' property and all those kind of things. So, can you talk about those two things?
Yeah. So there, you always have one family member, one person in the family that knows everything. And as sometimes, as much as that can be a thorn to us, it's also a very big help. And that's where organization comes in when you're doing probate. So probate is a legal process. It's a process of getting property out of the deceased person's name. And I'm not just talking about real estate. I'm talking about any property, bank accounts, retirement accounts, life insurance policies, getting property out of the deceased person's name and putting it into the names of their loved ones or whoever it should be in. And so organization is so important because you need to know who those things are supposed to go to. Who did they intend for them to go to? The interesting thing, we live in Florida, right? So the interesting thing about Florida and most states is when you don't create a will, Florida will create a will for you. And it may not be what you want.
Say that one more time, and it's not
Mhm.
going to be advantageous to your family when
Yeah,
Florida creates the will.
absolutely. So when you don't create a will, Florida will create a will for you. And most states do that. And it's expensive when the state creates the will for you. Why? Because you not only have to hire a lawyer to probate your assets, but you also have to go and find the assets. You also have to get the assets retitled in the person's or names that you want them to go into. All of this can be costly versus if you sat down with an attorney ahead of time and did your estate plan. And I wouldn't just say a will, an estate plan. Where do you want things to go? Do you have churches you want to consider? Do you have godchildren that you want to consider? Do you have children that maybe your other family members don't know about that you want to consider? All these things come into play. And so you want to think about those things. And you want to talk to somebody in confidence, about how you structure the assets that you have so that it goes to where you want them to go. For example, most people have bank accounts, right? And it's in their name, right? I have a bank account, you have a bank account, my bank account is in my name, right? So they don't think about, well, what happens to the bank account when I pass? Oh, if I have a will, it'll just go to wherever I say that it's supposed to go to in the will. Yes, that's true. But your family members are going to have to probate that asset. But if you can name a payable on death beneficiary, right? If you can name somebody that says, go to your bank account and say, hey, Bank of America, when I pass, I want my account to go to my three children. I'm going to put my names not on the account as an owner, okay? But I'm going to put them on as payable on death beneficiaries. That way, my children, all they have to do is get my death certificate and go to and their ID and go to the bank and retrieve the funds. They don't have to hire a lawyer to do that. They don't have to spend $3,000 to do that. And sometimes it doesn't even make sense to spend a lawyer for that, right? I've had people that had $1,500 in a bank account and they want to get it. Well, it's going to cost you about $2,000 to get that 1,500. And so that's part of estate planning. And those are discussions you want to have with somebody that you have confidence in that can hear you out and effectuate what you want to occur.
You see, and the important thing about what you just said is this. That's advice that some people would have said, well, I'm going to charge you $2,000 to get this $1,500. But you told that individual, hey, look here, it would cost you money to get the money that's payable upon death. The other thing, and they call it POD,
Yes.
and it's simple to do. All you got to
Yes.
do is and you're not doing anything unscrupulous. You just want to make sure that if you don't do it, what happens? If you don't put somebody's name that's still alive after you pass on that bank account, what happens?
You got to probate it. And so if you don't probate it, what then happens is the bank, after so much time, sends it to unclaimed property. And unclaimed property has its own process of getting things to people. But you have to, after so much time, if you don't claim it, after 10 years or so, it goes to the state. And so now your family members loses that ability to get that asset. But even with unclaimed property, they sometimes require you to probate the asset too in order to get it. So, you know, that's something very simple that all your listeners and viewers can do is to go, if they haven't already, go put a payable on death beneficiary, POD, or sometimes known as transfer on death beneficiary, and put it on their bank accounts. I'm not saying put your children on your bank accounts because your children might have creditors out there. They may owe Discover credit card, and you don't want Discover credit card to go to your bank and take out whatever they think belongs to your child. But if you can at least name somebody as a payable on death, then you save that person from having to probate your estate. And if you don't have anybody, you don't have anybody, and that's okay too. Just understand that whoever will need to probate your estate in order to get those funds. So it's about education. It's about meeting with people that you trust, that have your best interest at hand, that care about what your plans are. Because like I stated, if you don't create a will for yourself or have a plan for yourself, right? Um, Someone else does, and they will figure out a way to disseminate what you've worked very hard for to people that you may not necessarily want to have that.
The other thing I think that's important, with especially the POD, is that person doesn't have to sign anything. You
No,
know, whoever you put on there, you just need to make sure they know that they're the POD. But that person doesn't have to sign anything. There's no process. it's simple, and again, it goes to the person that the deceased wants it to go to, and that's so important.
Yeah.
One of the things that one of the other things I want to talk about is, uh, give me an example of an air property opportunity in terms of people understanding the process and how they can avoid some of the pitfalls of bad something that happened that you know about. I know you can't name names, but can you just give people the importance of planning with air property?
Yeah. I mean, I have so many examples that are coming to head because I have so many cases. But what I will say is typically what you see is there's the property is owned in great granddad's name, and you've got cousins and aunties and uncles all living on that property, and one person's paying the taxes. One person's paying the taxes on that property. That creates an issue. That creates hurt feelings. It creates issues. It's the reason why lawyers get involved. So to avoid that, what I would encourage people to do is if you have more than one child, um, consider doing what we would like to call an enhanced life estate deed or some type of trust that says when I pass, these are the people that gets the property. Um, and make it very clear that these are the people, and then encourage them to do the same. It may not avoid multiple owners owning that one piece of property. But when you create a plan again, when you have a will, when you say where you want things to go, then it avoids a lot more people owning the property, right? Just for example, when people die in Florida and they don't have a will and they have no children, no spouse, well, then their property goes up to their parents. If their parents are deceased, then it goes out to their siblings. If their siblings are deceased, then it goes out to their siblings' children. So you can see how all of this, you can have second, third cousins owning property that your lineal parent, grandparent, great grandparent once owned. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's one way to deal with that. The other way is to do deeds and to say, okay, when I pass, it goes to this person with joint rights of survivorship, meaning if I've got 8 kids, when one kid passes, then the other 7 own that property free and clear, and that eighth child's children doesn't have an interest. And when number 7 passes, then it's the 6 owners. And number 6 passes, you keep it in the family, yes. Do you cut out the grandchildren, great grandchildren? Yes. But you also limit the number of owners too.
Okay. Okay, and the other thing is because we're getting short on time, but the other thing is insurance and the importance of insurance. But you'll talk about that on your show when you get on Lit TV. But I want to come on your show and just talk about those kind of things too. But
Yeah.
if folks want to contact you, talk, Jamie, tell them how they can get in touch with you.
So our telephone number is 850-688-8651. And our website is www.coleman, COLEMAN.LAW. And so feel free to give us a call, go to our website. You'll have our email and our contact information. You can also email us at contactus@coleman.law. We're happy to help.
And the other thing is, after every show, we're going to have a YouTube live where we get deeper into these issues and the things that we talk about. So we'll have the attorney back on, my favorite probate attorney in the entire world. And with that, the closing is simple. The closing is, whatever I do and however I do it is only because of my great parents. My parents and their prayers are what still sustains me, and both of them are gone. But I dedicate this program to my mother and my father, Mr. Henry White and Mrs. Glaswell. She used to always make sure people call her Mrs. Glaswell. So I love them, and that's what this show is going to be dedicated to, those wonderful Americans, humans, parents. I can't say enough about them folks. So with that, This has been Pragmatic Solutions with John Wyche, and I thank you for being my first guest, Attorney Jamie Coleman.
Thank
You are
you.
my favorite, my only probate attorney go-to. You do estates, you do all of it, and I want to say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
All right.
so much, John. I appreciate you.